Fantastic. It sounds like we have sound. I'm so sorry about the delay, everyone. Minor or major technical problems. So apologies. I'm going to kick off from the start again. Obviously, we haven't got that much time left, so I'll keep it as short and sweet as possible. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this afternoon. Again, apologies for the late start. So welcome to Getting a Great CV. I'm Cassie Gilbert. I head up the Careers Service here at the Business School. Been with the school for just over a year or so. In terms of my background, I was head of graduate recruitment at JP Morgan, mainly looking after EMEA, but I also rolled out programs to Asia Pacific too. Prior to that, I've done various talent recruitment and development roles at companies like Ernst & Young, Deloitte and Mercer's. So hopefully I'm pretty well placed to run this session in terms of what a great CV looks like. I'd say I've probably recruited thousands of people over the years and screened more CVs than I care to remember. So this is very much a presentation on my hints and tips of what a good CV looks like. Okay, in terms of agenda, we'll probably spend about 20-25 minutes or so of me actually talking through the presentation, but I'll try and keep it shorter than that so that we've got a bit more time for Q&A at the end. What we're going to cover: what is a CV, why do companies want a CV, why are they useful for you, how to write a CV, so we'll go through some actual details around our standard template at Imperial and how you would complete such a thing. And then how do I find out more? This is very much around the principles of what we've seen work CV-wise. Obviously, you will then need to go away and tailor this to your own specific needs. So, what is a CV? I think we all know a CV is a personal document which outlines your education, career history, additional skills and outside interests. It's the most traditional recruitment tool, so it's often the first thing that a recruiter would see to represent you. And it really offers the recruiter an understanding of your experience and skills and whether you are potentially right for that job. For every single one, your CV will ultimately be a sell document for you, so you need to make it as high impact, succinct, clearly laid out as you can to make it very obvious to that recruiter or that global head that you might be right for the job. On average, recruiters spend 30 seconds looking at each CV that they see, and for certain industries, it's even less than that. So really, really important that you do stand out from the crowd. So as a recruiter, I used to take home a pile of 100 CVs as of an evening and literally whiz through them, deciding yes or no very, very quickly. And it is around whether your obvious skills stand out on your CV. So some key questions around a CV. Everyone should have different versions of your CV dependent on the role and the company. Some of the key questions we're often asked are whether you should have a one-page CV or 2 pages. What I would say is no more than 2 pages, because essentially after 2 pages you would have lost the recruiter's interest. Sounds harsh, but it is true. So a one-page CV is particularly useful as a networking CV, or for particular industries like financial services or consulting, where it's very standard to have a one-pager. The length of your CV will obviously depend on the length of your work experience up to a point. So if you have 4 years experience, then one-page CV should be absolutely sufficient. If you have 20 years experience, then 2 pages might be right for you. So it very much depends on the individual and the amount of experience and relevant experience that you have. So on to relevance. Should you put all your experience or as relevant on your CV? What I would say is the more relevant your experience, the more you write about it. Make sure most information on your CV is applicable to the role that you're applying for. So don't include redundant information, like if you left school 15 years ago, your school grades. That's not relevant to the role that you're going for. If your work experience 20 years ago isn't relevant, you don't need to mention it. What I would recommend is always start by looking at the job spec of the position and really try to match what you put on your CV as closely as possible to what they're looking for. Remember, you can also change the order of your points so that they see the most relevant parts first to really make you stand out from the crowd. Traditional format or skills-based CV. I'd say skills-based CVs are fairly new in the industry and are right for certain types of roles. For most roles, you should use a traditional approach, as it is easier to understand and you never know who's going to actually be looking at your CV. A traditional CV also takes the reader less time to see the bits that's relevant to them and the bits that they want to see. So when is a skills-based CV relevant? I'd say if you have large gaps in your CV, or if you're going for a role within a more creative industry where you want to really stand out as someone a bit different. The other time when a skills-based CV is particularly useful is if you're going for a radical career change, when obviously you wouldn't have done the role that you're applying for, but you want to really highlight your transferable skills that would be relevant in the new role. So skills-based CVs. So what is a skills-based CV? This is very much where you highlight the skills required in a particular role with evidence of where you've displayed that particular skill. As I said, very much about you really highlighting your transferable skills here for the recruiter. So for example, under communication skills, you might have liaised with senior clients as an audit manager at Deloitte, updated them on the audit's progress and discussed material issues with them regarding the result of the audit. So that's very, very clear how you've demonstrated those communication skills. So what you'd normally do is go through the job spec, highlight the key skills they're looking for, and cover each of those on your CV with clear evidence of where you've displayed that particular skill. You then summarise your work experience at the end of the CV in terms of dates and roles that you've held throughout your career. So one-page CVs. So why do companies want a one-page CV? So CVs obviously give companies a real opportunity to find out more about you. So what are they looking for? They're looking for whether you match their job requirements in terms of skills. They're looking for whether you match their job requirements in terms of actual experience. And also whether you've demonstrated an interest in the area. And that could be through taking particular modules in your degree, through work experience you've been involved in, or through clubs and societies and outside interests that you've been involved in. So that bit's really, really key in terms of showing them your motivation. So one-page CVs, as I mentioned, companies such as financial services and consulting are often looking for a one-page CV for a couple of main reasons. So number one, they're looking at how succinct you are in your written communication. Number two, having everything on one page helps them to get through the applications quicker because they often have hundreds or thousands of applications per particular role. In general, as I mentioned already, if you have less than 4 years of experience, always use a one-page CV. Any more is not necessary. What I would say is when you do start looking for a new job, you will need several iterations of your CV. So for the banking sector and management consulting, a one-page CV will be relevant. For other sectors or considerable work experience, a two-page CV will be relevant. So why are CVs useful for you? So a really useful way for you to demonstrate to an organisation why you should be invited to interview. So this is really, as I said, your sell document. So highlighting your skills, your experience, your achievements. If you include a profile, as I recommend you do, you can also outline how you fit the role. The profile points are particularly relevant if you haven't directly done the role before. CVs are also useful for you to network with people inside and outside of Imperial, inside and outside of your organisation. So do consider that. Obviously, nowadays, a lot of recruitment is done via social networking sites, such as LinkedIn, etc. So being visible there with a real solid CV could lead to an approach from someone interested in recruiting you, or at least having a conversation about how you could do business together. Okay, some slightly obvious bits and pieces here, so apologies, but you'd be amazed at how many people do fall into these various traps. So always check your CV for spelling and grammar. Very easy to do, but also from a recruiter's perspective, very easy to reject someone on the basis of one spelling mistake in their CV or in their cover letter. It's an easy way of getting through a high number of application forms and getting people out of the process. So very, very easy to get right. Make sure your CV is clear, relevant and targeted to get into the shortlist piles, as I've mentioned already. Consider first impressions, so make sure that you've got an appropriate email address, so no jargon, nothing too funny in your email address, etc. Always tailor the CV to suit each different job vacancy. Research the job first and make sure you know what the potential employer is going to be looking for, and make sure you highlight those things. Provide evidence of the competencies the companies are looking for and give them the most prominence in your CV. So we've got an example here. So if you have a very technical background and you want to move into strategy consulting, highlight the areas where you've had strategic input and had to really understand the client needs. What not to do? Send out one generic CV to all recruiters. It may be the easy approach, but you're likely to get very little in return. Don't use abbreviations or company industry-specific technical language. Again, the recruiter is likely to be very time poor. If they don't understand immediately what you're saying, they're likely to not bother reading any further and reject you on the basis of that. So make sure it's very, very clear, concise English. Don't assume the recruiter will understand exactly what you've done because they work in the industry. So you need to be really clear in terms of your actual job spec and what you've achieved in previous roles. So on the how-to write a CV. So for purposes at Imperial, what we found is a one-page CV works best. Our CVs would tend to cover basic details, 3 prominent profile points, your education, your work experience, language, IT and interests. So I'm now going to go through these step by step. Hopefully some of you would have seen this profile before. So this is our standard one-page CV. As I mentioned, you may want to have other versions depending on where you're sending it to or who you're showing it to. So, for example, academic CVs will look very different with a very extensive list of publications, etc. So, make sure your contact details are at the top, obviously. Use profile points to outline the key skills you have for the role. So this is what's going to really make you jump out and stand out from the crowd and get the recruiter's attention. As I say, particularly relevant if you are a career changer, when it's not obvious how your actual experience relates to the role you're applying for. If you have less than 2 years' work experience, have the education section first. If you have lots of work experience and it's relevant to the role, you may want to include this section above the education. And do make sure that you include other skills and achievements that show that you've got lots of other interests in your life and that you're a well-rounded individual who hasn't just focused on work and academics. You've done much more than that. So how to write a CV. So basic details. Again, apologies if this is very obvious. Good use of grammar creates the right impression. Don't use abbreviations, so use avenue rather than as. Always include your mobile phone number and check that it's the correct one, as that's likely to be your main, the number that they actually try and contact you on. But ensure that your voicemail message is appropriate, as I'm sure everyone would do. But again, I've rung up people in the past that have had crazy, wacky voicemail messages that just look highly unprofessional. So just be aware. And then obviously write your email in lowercase letters. As we're going through this, we're going to leave the profile section till last because that's the most exciting bit. So your basic details should look a bit like this. Make sure that you only have one email address and that your phone number works. In terms of education, start with the most recent education programme that you've taken. Do include details of core modules or electives that may be relevant to the role that you're applying to. If they're not relevant, leave them off. They just take up space that could be better used with you highlighting other key skills or experiences that are relevant for the role. Don't include full address details for institutions. Continue down with your previous education as far as is relevant. And do include details such as the title of your undergraduate thesis, if it's relevant, any academic awards, prizes or scholarships that will really impress the recruiter in terms of how you've gone above and beyond what's expected academically. Generally, if you have less than 2 years' work experience, which most of you won't have, include your A-levels or equivalent qualifications. And remember to write your education exactly as you see it. So this is how we'd expect you to write your academics. So what should it look like? So again, think about what you're trying to achieve here and the job that you're applying to or the company that you're interested in, and highlight the bits that are relevant. So generally we'd say put your institution heading in bold. Obviously Imperial College Business School is a great brand name. Put course title and grade in italics. So it's very, very easy for the recruiter to see. And as mentioned, any modules or electives that are relevant, do include them here. Ones that are not relevant, do not include them. So work experience. Again, in terms of what you should include, quite obvious, but anything that is relevant. So working for a family business, that might be very relevant to the job that you're applying for. Any full-time work that you've had, any part-time work that you've had, any voluntary work that you've had. Anything that is relevant or where you can pick out relevant skills to the job that you're applying for. So in terms of what to highlight, so you want to highlight the role that you actually had rather than the company that you actually worked for. I've seen people write paragraphs about the company they worked for before getting on to what they actually did for that company. And the recruiter will lose interest before they even get to the part of what you did. So make sure that even if you need to put one sentence about what the company is, that's fine, but no more than that. Think about your work experience from the point of view of the recruiter. What's relevant for them? Think about, you may all be familiar with this, think about the situation, task, action and result. So you're wanting to give really specifics here. So where is the evidence of the skills that you've displayed and what results did you get from displaying those skills? And think about achievements and beneficial outcomes of your work. So how should you write your work experience? As I say, you want to focus on your tasks, your responsibilities, your achievements. We really want you to use figures wherever you can to really quantify as well as qualify what you're saying. This has a much higher impact if people can see the tangible results of what you did. Clear dates in year format, organisation title and then job title in bold, and then clear evidence of results. When you're going through this, also very much think about the language that you used. You want it to be strong language that really displays what you did and your impact on the organisation. So using things like helped with at the start of a sentence is not strong and doesn't really tell the reader what it was that you did. So you want to be specific and give clear evidence. So things like designed, developed and delivered a series of 12 training courses for 15 sales executives over a period of 6 months, for example, or responsible for end-to-end delivery of whatever it might be. So think about the words you use and make sure that they're really strong words that indicate the level of your responsibility and everything that you achieve within that role. Again, fairly basic, but you need to put your IT skills on there. So do list everything that you've got and separate them with a comma. Languages, so languages more and more are often a differentiator between candidates when recruiters are looking at CVs. So do include all languages that you speak. Do obviously include English, include your native language, but also include the level of skill that you have. That will be important from a recruiter's perspective. So interest, this is an interesting one, where a lot of people do put it on there but don't necessarily put the right things. So this is very much your opportunity to demonstrate your individuality and your well-roundedness. So if you've climbed, say, Kilimanjaro, you've raised money for charity, activities where you've been part of a team outside of academia or your work life. So think about how your interests can really help you. So if your CV demonstrates only lone activities, and so you've done a lot of working on projects on your own, try to demonstrate where you've worked with others through your interests. So what clubs you've been part of, what charities you've been part of, etc. Again, as you're going through this, don't forget to qualify or quantify here the level of achievement that you've reached. So in sports or music or raising money for charity, etc. Also think about including things that could relate to your future career moves. So for example, if you've been involved in virtual trading, include your successes. So things that you might want to have here, so club or committee memberships, either in academia or in work or outside work, sports team memberships or achievements, publications, awards, certificates, any particular training you've undertaken, and your hobbies and interests. But when I say hobbies and interests, we don't want things like reading or socialising. They're meaningless to a recruiter, even if you do enjoy doing those things, as we all do. So you can see there how additional skills and achievements should look. So very clearly your IT skills, languages, and interests and achievements. Sorry, just having a sip of water. Right, now we're going to look at the profile bit. This is absolutely key, and this is what will make you stand out from the crowd. What we would normally encourage is that people think of really a suite of bullet points for the profile section that are relevant to you, and you can pick and choose depending on where you're applying to and what the role is. So I'd say generally people should have a bank of maybe 20 or 15 profile points, and they can pick and choose the relevant one dependent on the job. So for example, you may want to play up your communication skills, teamwork and leadership to one company, but for another company, play up your analytical skills, decision making and problem solving. So this section should very much not look like a list of skills. That's not the point of this. It's meant to really excite the recruiter, to get them on board and to get them wanting to continue reading through your CV. So this has to be high impact, immediately obvious to the recruiter why they should go further with you, why they should interview you, why they should hire you, how you'd be able to do the job. So we generally would recommend 3 bullet points, which, as I say, highlight your skills, highlight your experience or interests, and highlight the knowledge or network you have. You want your profile points to be succinct and to the point, so less than 2 lines, and try to only include 1 skill or interest per bullet point. So that's why it's important that you have a bank of different ones you can use for different roles. So, what does a profile point look like? So link each skill to a specific experience. Again, this is about displaying actual evidence of where you've shown that particular skill. So in this example here, we've got outstanding entrepreneurial skills, there's a clear skill there, developed through setup of 2 companies within the field of optometry. That's a specific example of what you've done and how you've shown those entrepreneurial skills. So what your 3 skill profile points might look like. So these are quite strong ones here. So extensive international marketing management experience in electronic consumer products and consultancy. Clearly says your skills and your experience. The second one, proven ability to build commercially successful relationships with internal and external clients, generated 10,000 of business at Dell. So clear evidence of what you've achieved with that particular skill. So where you can quantify things, it really does have a high impact, so try and do that. Third one, entrepreneurial drive and experience, founded 2 profitable companies within different sectors and business models. So again, it's quite clear. So self-assessment, so tailoring your profile points and tailoring your CV to the particular role. Really, really important. One size does not fit all. You need to have a suite of CVs relevant for different roles that you're going for. So what you want to do here is really look at the key criteria of the role, go through the job spec and highlight all the keywords that you think it would be important to highlight when you're applying for the role. Make a note of these on a piece of paper. So go through the whole job spec, not just the attributes that they're looking for, because you might see other things come out throughout the job spec. So what I would recommend, but obviously different things work for different people, is on the left-hand side of a piece of paper, write down all the competencies or the skills that you've highlighted. And on the right-hand side of the paper, brainstorm all the examples of where you've demonstrated those particular competencies or completed those tasks. Again, ideally with tangible outputs that can really show how good you are in terms of that particular skill. This exercise is actually really useful in also deciding if the role is right for you. So actually whether you would enjoy doing it, but also whether you think that you would be good at it. So this will help you really clarify in your mind why you're right for the role. Okay, so if there are gaps in your experience or knowledge, again, you want to find examples where you've used similar skills before, so those transferable skills that you might have got from previous work experience or outside interests. This is the key point here, is the job spec is the recruiter's ideal profile. They do not expect to find a candidate who matches all of the requirements. You know, those people are far and few between. So therefore, it's unlikely you'll be able to meet all of these criteria, but don't panic about that. You really want to go on the 70% rule. So you want to make sure that you can meet 70% of the criteria. If so, then great to apply. Any less than that, then you might find it challenging in that particular role. Any more than that, you might not actually get the stretch and interest that you require from that role. So another example here of how you can cover a lot in a few well-chosen words when you're going through your profile points. So high-caliber consultant, that will basically cover able to listen to clients' needs, able to build relationships, able to communicate recommendations, proven delivery track record, etc. So you've got little phrases like that that are quite a good catch-all that convey all of those skills and experiences to the recruiter. So as I say, for every bullet point on the job spec, you need to ask yourself, where have I done that before? Where have I used a similar skill set to the one required here? What similar experience do I have to that? If you haven't got it, what possible transferable skills can you highlight here? So for example, if a job spec says they want managing and delivering on projects, utilising the skills and expertise of the team as a whole as one of the requirements, what's it looking for? It's looking for ability to understand key performance indicators, ability to manage people and deadlines, ability to stick to timescales and client requirements, and the ability to understand the strengths and skills of individual team members. So again, you can get lots and lots of things into kind of a short, succinct sentence. Okay, so again, when you're going through this, when you're going through the job spec, think about what the top 3 requirements that keep coming through throughout the description. What does the description keep repeating? So, for example, in this profile below, clients, new business, and high caliber consultant might be the 3 things that they repeat continuously throughout the job spec. You might then want to think about a profile point like this. Experienced consultant with proven ability to build senior level client relationships. Contacts developed led to generating additional 20,000 in revenue. That would cover, as I say, the clients, the high caliber consultants, the building and developing relationships, and identifying opportunities for new business. As I say, if you haven't got the specific match in terms of experience, you might provide an example from your previous role where you've built relationships, had to understand clients' needs, involved in delivery. So really think about what consultant means and the skill set that this would involve and how you will portray when you've done that. So tailoring your education. So again, important, particularly if you haven't done the particular role before. So use what you've learned on your MBA or your MSc to highlight some of your skills. Particularly if you're a career changer, you might want to match the transferable skills that you've got from your higher education. Use any projects that you did at the business school, so your IED project, any group work that you did, any industry sector club involvement, etc. And again, outline core modules or electives that are actually relevant to the position. So in terms of tailoring work experience, how might you tailor your work experience? So think about the aspects of the role that you highlight first. So again, this is about relevance. So you might spend 80% of your time on project implementation and only 20% of your time on business development. But if the role that you're going for is very strongly business development focused, you put that first because that's the most relevant point. And again, likewise, you might spend 80% of your time on technical consulting, 20% on strategic consulting. If you're going for a strategic role, you put the strategic consulting part first. So really think about using the keywords from the job spec on your CV to highlight the skills and responsibilities that are relevant. This is really, really important, this bit, and will make the difference between you getting to the next round or not. Sorry about whistling through this. I'm aware that time is ticking, so we're nearly there. So in terms of a recruiter's perspective, as I mentioned earlier, recruiters often have a very, very heavy workload and have lots and lots of CVs to look through on a daily basis. So a couple of quotes here. So I get into work, my day's filled with client meetings, reports that need to be completed, interviews, deadlines on budgets, team review meetings, and oh yes, I have to look at this big pile of CVs and cover letters on my desk. Again, in practice, recruiters will skim your CV, they receive hundreds of applications for each position, and as I mentioned, they like to spend on average 30 seconds looking at your CV. So again, the main point is, as a recruiter, you're really looking for keywords, therefore, and as you're skimming through the CV and the cover letter, so the closer you match it, the more chance you have of going through to the next round. Oh, so, nearly finished. So, in short, I would say the most important things are making sure that your profile points are spot on and really help you stand out from the crowd, that everything in your CV is relevant to the role that you're applying for and tailored to that particular company's need. So we've gone through a whistle-stop tour and we've looked at the high-level principles of CV writing, how we here at Imperial recommend that you write a CV, but again, one size doesn't fit all. So in terms of more information on CV writing and a lot more sort of in-depth material, I'd recommend going to the Careers Service website. Alternatively, if you're looking to really update your CV at the moment because either you want an internal move or you're looking to move externally, do come and see the careers team for a one-to-one appointment to really work on those profile points and get the CV that will sell you to the best of your abilities. Well, I hope you found that fairly useful. That was a very, very quick whistle-stop tour. So now I'm aware of time, so we've probably got about 5 minutes for questions. So any questions, please do send them through, and I will respond as best I can. Otherwise, please do contact me directly if you want to have a chat about anything careers related. Thank you very much for your time.